Good morning, everyone. Beautiful readings and well done, particularly the whispers. Thank you for that choice. So I'm Nayaswami Krishnadas, and it's very wonderful to be here with you on the first Sunday service of the new year. So I had a different start this morning. As you'll notice, my wife Nayaswami Mantradevi isn't here. So I was yesterday planting trees and enjoying the day because she was going to give the talk. So this morning the alarm went off. I don't always set it, but this is an important engagement I didn't want to miss. So it went off, but out of the darkness I heard, "I have a sore throat. I'm not feeling well." So I thought maybe she was playing a trick, So out of the darkness I said, "Are you serious?" She said, "Yes." So I never got up that fast. I became right awake. So anyway, here I am. This it reminds me of, in the new year, we're given a great opportunity. It kind of teaches us two things. It tells us that it's a time for new beginnings or renewed efforts. The other is time is passing ever so quickly, and we don't have time to waste. So we need to bear down. So I thought if I can give you one key to life in general, or particularly to your spiritual life, it's this one thing that I'm going to hold back from you for a second. Keep you on your toes. I heard a funny joke a while ago. The comedian Swami Ananda, you probably heard of him. So he was mimicking a Q&A with a Swami, and so there was a question taken from the back. "Swamiji, what is the key to life?" And he said, "Yes, my child, good question." He said, "I have bad news and good news. Because first I'll give you the bad news. There is no key." And the room went, "Oh." He said, "Now the good news. The door was never locked." I think that's how it is for us. Our hearts, the key is in our heart. The story about the gods met, and where were they going to hide the key? And they said, "Well, we'll put it on the highest mountain." And they said, "No, man will climb the highest mountain eventually. We'll put it at the very depths of the sea. No, they'll get there eventually as well." And one god said, "I know where we'll hide it. We'll put it right in the center of his heart. That's the last place he'll look." That's where we need to look. Not just look there, we need to open our hearts. There's many keys, actually. The most important thing for the devotee, and you can fill in the blank, whether it's faith or attunement, receptivity. That's the one thing we continuously have to work on, is being receptive. Because God's grace is omnipresent, all the time, happening all at once, available to all of us in a moment. Ongoing. We have to be receptive to it. So our sadhana is all about keeping attuned and keeping the veil parted so that we can be living in this grace all the time. It's available. We have to do the work. So in this new year, it's an opportunity to up the ante. I don't like to take a poll. I never like it when teachers do that. Who energizes every day? you know. And I don't even like to admit it if I do, because then I feel the guy next to me feels like a heel because he doesn't, you know. But this is a time to kind of blow off the dust off your tools, off your practices, you know, and re-energize, get them going again. If you're doing it, re-energize it, you know, focus. I love coming out of this season of Christmas because it's so inspiring, the 8-hour meditation and, you know, all of the focus on Christ and the Christmas. And there's this one line that Mary said to Anne when she went to visit her, when she learned that she was with the Christ child, and Anne was also was carrying John the Baptist. And she went to her and said, Mary said, "He who is mighty has done unto me a mighty thing." Isn't that beautiful? It's not done unto us so much as if we're receptive, it's there, but it's by God's grace. And so we have to make ourselves available to this grace, receptive to it. We have so many practices. Yogananda said if you just did 10%, you'd find God. Somewhere else I heard 1%. But we have so many practices, powerful practices. And if you're on this path, you know them, and you know how powerful they are. If you're just getting into this, go for it. Because they work, they're guaranteed. There are many, you know, there's some major religions and major teachers these days, but this path of Yogananda and our lineage is one of the cream, and it delivers. So this would be something worthwhile to do. So if you are practicing them, you know, like I read in this book about the desert fathers who were around Jerusalem and the Sinai desert in the days after Christ. St. Anthony of the Desert was one of them. So this one was Abba. Anyway, one of the fathers. And so this one of the students, the underlings, comes to him and says, "Father, give me a word." So these guys go out and off into the desert by themselves and would meditate for years. So he says, "Father, give me a word," meaning direct me. What should I do? And he said, "Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul, with all thy strength." And the student bowed, and he went off for 10 years with that thought. That was it, his mantra. He comes back, says, "Father, give me another word." After all that time, and he says, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." And these are the two holy commandments, the first commandments, first and second. And then he bowed and went off again. So I thought, wow, that's a wonderful teaching, but I would need more, you know, for 10 years than that one quote. And we have more. We have so much, you know. And but I'm thinking of how we have to take it up and really do it. You know, we have to really practice it, these teachings and these techniques. So we're given energization, right? Energization exercises. Yogananda Ji said, give me some children, I put them on if you were on a desert island and all you had was that technique, through doing it daily, you would discover all the other techniques. Isn't that amazing? Through that energy, the energy releasing tension, and then becoming still and calm, the breath would naturally go into a rhythm, and the light would come. You know, we underestimate ourselves. I heard this story about a guy. He was in prison. He was in Alcatraz. We were taking a tour of it. You know, when your relatives come, you do these things that you never do. You know, so we took him to Alcatraz. You know, And wow, this is great, it's enjoyable. So we're getting this tour, and they're taking us to these cells where they're, they were in solitary confinement. And they played this tape, of a guy that was in it. And he had a thick Bronx, New York accent, and you don't think of these guys as necessarily being geniuses, but not to be stereotypical, but he didn't sound like he was very, enlightened. So he's in this, and he's saying, yes, I would sit in the dark day after day, and I would just look, and he'd throw a quarter up in the air, and it would fall, and he would look for it. That's how he passed his time. But he said, when he'd look into the darkness, and he'd focus, a light would come, and he'd concentrate on that light, and the light would get bigger and bigger and fill his consciousness and the cell. And I thought, and this wasn't a saint. This was someone that was concentrating on the light. I'm sure he came out of that experience changed, of course. It didn't say. But, again, just to say how much we have, all the techniques we have, and if we just applied them diligently, daily, look at what the potential, we have. So then we have Hong Sa. Hong Sa is, again, like I said, a new year. You could evaluate and inventory your tools. Are you doing? Are you using them? Like if you, look in your bag, and I forgot I had that. Or I need to blow the dust off this because, I've let it kind of languish. So let's say Hong Sa. Yogananda said if you practice it for 2 hours a day, you could become a master in this lifetime. Hong Sa. Now we always think of Hong Sa as kind of a warm-up to Kriya. I'm not going to ask you to hold your hand up. But, we're thinking Kriya. Or you have Kriya, and then you want the Kriya 2, Kriya 3. And we all have heard the famous story of Brinde, the postman who, a devotee came to Lahiri and wanted the next technique, and Lahiri didn't say anything. And then Brinde, the postman, came in and he said, Brinde, would you like, level 2? And he said, no, master, that's why I came, because I could hardly deliver my mail. Level 1 is filling me with such intoxication I can't even deliver my letters. So we should take that to heart. Kriya is very powerful, as you know. Is your practice vibrant? Are you really focusing? Are you really doing it with enthusiasm? Knowing what it is you have been given, the key to realization, self-realization. So all these, this sort of, I call it like a constellation of techniques we've been given, of stars that we can be in through the practice of all of these things. So I'm going to give you the key now. Intensity. Yogananda said, intensity is everything. So I thought if we were, to sort of give like a little synopsis to this year, and I don't know what our theme is this year. I haven't heard one. I don't know if you have. Jyotish usually gives us a theme. But intensity. Yogananda said intensity is everything. Intensity of awareness, he said. Being more and more aware. Most people are walking through this life, they're sleepwalking, I remember this funny image. I don't know if you ever watched Popeye when you were a kid, So there's one of olive oil, and it's a construction site, and she's sleepwalking. So she went out of her house and she's walking through. She ends up in this construction zone, and she's walking, and she puts her foot on a beam that was held by a crane, and then the crane took her up, and she's walking on this beam up in the air, and then the beam met another beam, and she stepped onto it, and then another one, and then it came down onto the ground, and she stepped off onto the ground. She's still walking asleep, I That's about how we are. We're like walking through life half asleep or totally asleep. And fortunately, God's grace, or the grace of the Guru, for all of us is, we don't even know what Guru's protection is keeping from us. We don't even know what, something could have went by and we're just sort of looking up in the air. Car accident, just stops us for a little while, or we would have been in it. We have so many stories of protection through Guru's grace. But that which does get in, obviously, is our karma, and there's a lesson there to be learned, as tragic as some of it is. And it's not any means to be funny about that. But usually those that get through the most serious afflictions come out saying that it was a blessing. So if you have something yourself, or if you have a loved one, you can be there for them, or tell yourself that if you just hold the line and bring in God's grace, you can get through it and become even more better, higher, with greater understanding. So intensity of everything. He said that intensity in all your spiritual practices is the only way, because through that intensity we can bring out the full potential of what they can do for us. And the masters, they're always with us, aren't they? I saw a funny joke, that one about it's not meant to be funny, it's sweet, that when the person saw tracks in the sand, and he got through the tragedy and asked God, when I went through that tough period, there's only one track of footprints in the sand, like, where were you? And then God said, I was there, those were my tracks, I was carrying you. Isn't that beautiful? And I saw a counter to that. And God spoke and said, do you see that big long groove in the sand? Yes. Well, that was me dragging you as you went kicking and screaming. Our resistance is the worst thing of all. We resist. Whether you're conscious of it or not, you resist. I resist. We resist. We're resisting, Part of intensity and part of our effort should be removing the resistance, overcoming the resistance. And that comes through bhakti yoga, really. When you feel that divine presence and you just latch onto it and you hold it and you increase it by the intensity of your longing and heart's devotion. And then it's so all fulfilling that we feel the presence. We know we're loved. We are loved. We're loved. Yogananda said, more than we can know, we're loved. And that's all the time. All the masters have given us their promise. Jesus said, I will be with you. When the disciples were with him and he had resurrected, he said, I will be with you until the end of time. That's the Christ consciousness. Lahiri said, I am ever with those who practice Kriya. Yogananda ji, he said, those who think me near, I will be near. And when I'm out of this body, I'm going to be with you even more than I was when I was in the body, because there's no limitation, there's no separation all around us, within us, here, right now. Right here in your heart. All the techniques in the world aren't going to do anything. It's how we do them. It's the consciousness we do them with. It's the attitude. Intensity is everything, meaning focus. And that focus, when we have faith and persistence, that's intensity. That's how intensity happens. Faith and persistence. Never give up attitude. And when we do that daily, we just float in this sea of spirit, like Postman Brinde. We just float. And that's what the masters want for us. That's why they come. And all of our practices, even done with intensity, are meant to do one thing. Help us live right here at the point between the eyebrows, here in our heart, those two connected, and develop intuitive perception. Because that's the only way we can experience any of this, is by increasing our knowing, means increasing your intuition, and knowing means experiencing it. So let's go into this new year marching, high-stepping with confidence and faith and also joy. It's got to be fun, or else we're not going to want to do it. With Swami Kriyananda, we have this big mission, and it's going very well now, and there's thousands and thousands of followers all over the world. But one of the most cherished memories I have of him is that we laughed a lot. He was so joyful. Even in the midst of crisis, that was the lesson. Things could look like they're not going well, but that didn't affect his joy, and that joy was infectious. So the world right now needs joy. It needs our joy. Things aren't going very well on one level. But we have to trust that God has a plan. This is happening for a reason. Our political system, is kind of going through some very interesting times. But it's all got to be for the good. We have to hold that faith and trust in the divine plan for the planet and for your own self. Hari Om.